Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's that time of week again. Everybody's favorite segment, the Power Rankings. Guys, we are so close to 800 subs. If you're new, please sub to the channel. If we get 15 likes on this video, maybe an NFL record, I will do a bonus video this week for all you guys that keep coming back. I really appreciate you guys. We're getting close to that 1,000 mark, but 800 is the first step. We're going to go into this 32 teams to go over relatively quickly, but there are 32 teams, so each team might get a minute, might get less, might get more. But guys, we're going to jump right into it. Number 32, I can't really come up with a reason why they should be any higher. They lose to Tennessee this past week, and then they go into Tampa Bay coming up this week. The Tennessee game, it's a team that maybe could see them beating, but they just fall short. 17-10, offense looking pretty rough. Young had a couple of times there as wide receivers, just not able to get it. He leans a ton on Thielen. We see that, of course, but did Carolina make the wrong decision? They fire their coach this week. And guys, I don't think it's his fault. The team pretty much sold everything last year, and this is the result you get. You can't have a young quarterback carry a team that doesn't have any talent to go with it. Number 32, I think it's pretty clear. Number 31, a new number 31. We got the New England Patriots, and it's just an all-time low spot as far as I can remember, almost since I started watching football for the Patriots. They lose to the Giants 10-7. We see Mac in there just not able to get anything going, throwing 2 picks this game. Zappy comes in, he throws a pick as well. Right now, it looks like they're playing the Chargers this coming week, and that Zappy is going to be the starter. It's pretty much towel in for New England. They're tanking. It's time for a new quarterback. I think we've seen the last of Mac Jones, potentially in the Patriots uniform, but who knows? This team doesn't have a quarterback whatsoever, but playing the Chargers this week, don't expect things to get any better. That brings us to the Giants. They're right there at number 30, and they've had a pretty insane year, but they've beat a couple of teams, and this kind of does remind me, actually, that this isn't the Giant spot. We'll get to them in a sec. I forgot to reshuffle. I did make a change last second, and number 30, I'm going to go to them first before I talk about the Giants. Number 30 is the Washington Commanders. They have a few wins. They've pushed Philly to overtime and stuff like that, but what I've seen from this team, I do not see a very bright future, at least right now. Getting blown out Thanksgiving against Dallas. We're going to see them have 10 days off. And then they're playing Miami this week, which you kind of expect Miami to be able to roll up a score as well, guys. The offense isn't there. Howell continues to be massively getting sacked. Washington, number 30. Losing both games to the Giants really made me decide this situation here. And the Giants, with the veto, what's that, 2-0? Pretty wild. So we have to give some momentum to the Giants. Beating both of these teams in the past 2 weeks, not the prettiest, but I do put them at number 29 because of that. So that was a little bit of a mix-up. And that puts Chicago slightly ahead of these guys. We know Chicago earlier in the year did beat up on Washington. That is one of the reasons I played into this kind of ranking here. What do I say about the game we just saw them play against Minnesota? They win 12-10. One of the ugliest games ever. I was against Justin Fields in fantasy myself, and I was up. We see that fumble right near the end where he fumbles it. I think it's over. -2 points for Justin Fields in my fantasy, and it did give me a 1-point lead, but he managed to come back, somehow drive down the field against Minnesota, put up a field goal, and I lose fantasy as well as Chicago does get an interesting win there. They have a bye week this week, so we're going to have to wait another week before we kind of see what Justin Fields is about. It's just so Jekyll and Hyde, it's insane. Number 27, we got the New York Jets, and the Jets played on that first ever Black Friday game. Dolphins absolutely obliterated them. Just funny that we see all these rumors with Rodgers potentially starting practice, all that fun stuff. Didn't see anything of that yet, but figured it would be trending if it happened. So I don't think it's happening yet, but the Jets have this rumor. They're ready for Rodgers to come back. At the very least, we might see one of the most interesting Achilles tendon recoveries of all time, which could pave the way for some interesting future recoveries, which is always cool to see. But that's pretty much the highlight of the Jets going forward. Jets have an interesting game. It's going to be somewhat, I think, a team they can maybe match up with, potentially in Atlanta. On the board itself, they're a little bit apart, but it is a game that could garner some interest, might be a little bit closer. Number 26, they got absolutely blown out, 37-14 against Arizona, against St. Louis Rams, LA Rams, Arizona. Wow, I am all over the place. So the Cardinals get blown out by the Rams, 37 points they give up. They're going to be playing Pittsburgh this week, so it's going to be not really a situation where the offense might tear them up this weekend, so maybe their defense will have a little bit more luck playing against Pittsburgh. But against a Rams team where we wanted to see Kyler Murray and be that a little bit better, Arizona is kind of in a fragile spot where they might fall further down the board if they can't do it. And maybe that's what they want, because this team is serious rebuild mode, whereas maybe the Jets could be arguably higher, because really it's just the quarterback problem that's really setting them back. And they really do have a good quarterback, so that probably should be adjusted. Next up, Tennessee. We saw them beat Carolina. Not a great win, but the team hasn't been great altogether, but the teams below them haven't done it well either. I think Tennessee has 4 wins this year. None of them have been on the road. They have like 5 games of their last 7 at home or something like that. It's just been a terrible, terrible schedule for the Titans. So for them to get a win there against Carolina, I think is relatively important. They're going to have a chance to play kind of spoiler. This team that they play is Indianapolis Colts on the weekend here. And those teams have battled hard all past couple of years, of course, forever. These guys are division rivals, so it's going to be a fun game for them. They have a chance to kind of play a little bit of spoiler, I think, against the Colts. We're having a little bit of a better season. Number 24, I think the biggest drop on the board, 24 points they give up to Atlanta Falcons. They only score 15, and it's just like a crazy season for the Saints. Every time I think they've taken a step forward, they just completely fall apart. I think we might see the end here. Derek Carr hasn't seemed to be the answer. He might be playing hurt. They have Jameis Winston in the back there too as the backup, and he's not getting a chance, right? So Carr potentially playing hurt. That's how desperate they are. They were desperate for a big win against Atlanta, because realistically, the South Division up for grabs. We talk about it all the time, each week. So tight, but I think with this loss to Atlanta, it really dampers the Saints, and it honestly dampers the division, just how everyone else has been going. Number 23, we talked about them already, beating Arizona. They play Cleveland in this upcoming week, and it's kind of a matchup that I'm interested in, because it seems like 2 teams going in separate directions. Rams got kind of put behind the 8 ball, dealing with all the injuries. They went on a little bit of a skid there, couldn't get any offensive going. Cup's back, Stafford's back. They put up a massive amount of points against Arizona Cardinals. Now they're playing a Browns team who's kind of stuttering. They're dazed in their playoff hunt. They have a chance to really give a knocking blow to the Browns team, and I think this game is going to be a lot closer, a lot more playoff-esque than we think. And I'm excited to see the Rams kind of make a charge up the board here. Number 22, the team that beat the Rams a couple of weeks ago. They surprised, I think, everybody on Thanksgiving, starting the festivities off with a big win over the Detroit Lions. We see them playing Kansas City in this upcoming week. I believe it's the Sunday nighter. That'll be cool. Jordan Love starting to, I think, come into form. It seems like Green Bay has this recipe for quarterbacks that has worked from Favre to Rodgers, and now Love is starting to step in. It's really cool to see a team that does something completely different than the rest of the league, but it seems to be successful. Green Bay taking some good steps forward. Not a playoff team, of course, but they're strong, and I think they're trending in the right direction. Number 21, just not a great chance to really judge this team. They're playing Kansas City this past week, and they lose, and it wasn't really close most of the way. They're going to be going into a bye here, so we're going to be a little bit while before we really get to gauge them again. So we're kind of just keeping them at the top of the second bottom row. They have a potential to move up, I think, but with the way this team started the season, they're not going to be making the playoffs. Next up, Atlanta. We talked about them, how they beat New Orleans already. They have the Jets on tap. And with Tampa Bay on a little bit of a skid too, they have a potential to make a real run at this NFC South. And with the Jets, they're going to show. They got to keep this momentum. They're playing a team, bottom row team on this board. This has got to be a win before I even consider moving them into the top half of the league, which a division leader should be, right? Maybe not with the NFC South this year, but Atlanta, they have to win this week for me to take some strong consideration. Number 19, not going to put a ton of weight into this week. They looked embarrassing, obviously, against the Bears in such a low-scoring game. Defense on the other side looked great. So some people, maybe Dobbs, a little bit of the magic is wearing off. We know these kind of quarterbacks. There's a reason he hasn't been a solid starter his whole career, right? So we're going to start to see some flaws. We saw it this past week. How Minnesota rebounds will determine if they're going to have a shot at the playoffs. I did a prediction video 3 weeks ago and predicted them making the playoffs with double-digit wins, and it was pretty surprising. But one of the wins I did have was against that Bears team that they lost to. So that's starting to kind of stumble here, and we'll see how they rebound after a bye week themselves. Number 18, moving on down the board, they have Jacksonville coming up on a Monday night, and we would have been super stacked for this Monday night, but the Bengals have been falling down this board, and it's rightfully so. They're struggling. Offensively, without Burrow, they're just not going to be the same team. They go 10-16 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, they're just falling down the board. Don't expect them really to make a threat. This is where they're probably going to sit. They might even fall if it starts getting really embarrassing a little bit further down the board. But we got to keep in mind that they're dealing with a ton of injuries now that Burrow is out. Number 17, team that's a little bit on. I can't even believe it, really. Maybe they should be lower. Division leader at this point, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coming off that loss against Indianapolis, 27-20. They just never really had the lead, held it very long in this game whatsoever. They have a chance to just right the ship. They're playing Carolina this upcoming week, and this is a team that should win. And if you're going to be a playoff team, if you're going to win your division, you got to win this week. I said that about Atlanta. I'm going to say it about Tampa Bay as well. Number 16. I don't know. I just keep dropping them. I probably keep them a little bit higher than I ever should, according to most people. But I still think they're a pretty solid team. They just have had such a bad coaching, bad bluff, bad defense, bad offense. It's just been bad. The Chargers lose to the Ravens 10-20. And they're going to be playing the Jets this upcoming week. Chargers, it's pretty much season over for them at this point. They're falling out of the race. They've looked bad, and I guess the best thing they can do is win on out, and that's really going to have to start with the Jets. Number 15, Gardner Minshew. Somehow Minshew Mania in this house. We call him the Mustache Bandit since his early days at Jacksonville. This team's getting it done. The stats don't look great, but they're winning. They've had a good trip over to Europe with a solid win. No one says you have to win every game with a masterpiece, and sometimes it's ugly for them. But going into Tennessee, a struggling team in their division, I think it's a chance for them to really put themselves into the top rows here with this upcoming week. Number 14, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They somehow are on their road to a double-digit winning season. Tomlin, I guess, got to be a miracle. Firing the offensive coordinator didn't prove to be super impactful, but they did put up a lot more yards, winning 16-10 against Cincinnati. They do have a big week. Arizona, a team where their defense could feast. And we could see what maybe their offense can do against a somewhat weaker team. It'll be interesting. We got to watch that one. Number 13, we got the Seattle Seahawks coming off a drubbing Thanksgiving night against San Francisco, 31-13. They're having a key important game, and it's pretty much getting to that point. All these games are going to be important, especially for the teams chasing playoffs, but they're going to have themselves matched up. Thursday night, they're going to be in prime time facing off against the Cowboys, and right now they're not in a good spot against a team like Dallas. Dallas just coming off that massive win. Seattle coming off a pretty embarrassing loss. Interesting spot, and I think when it comes to spreads, tends to go on the underdog's favorite, and we would see that with Seattle. Number 12, maybe I shouldn't have them this high. Cleveland, I think realistically you could maybe drop Cleveland down, but Cleveland is just so hard to figure out because their defense is so strong. Myles Garrett is a beast. They have shown light at times, but now we're on to their third quarterback of the season. And guys, I think we could probably argue they could be down. Got drubbed. Denver really took it to them this past week, one of the hottest teams in the NFL, and Cleveland has their work cut out for them next week. Rams, this is kind of what I talked about when we talked about the Rams. Two teams in different directions. Wanted to see what they're like, because to me, Cleveland and these guys arguably could be middling teams. So it's like which one's going to happen is going to really determine going forward. So number 11, we have the Buffalo Bills. And guys, if you're a Bills fan, you guys should be devastated with how some of these games have played out. Eagles overtime, ugly, ugly, ugly. Can't be excited. They couldn't wait for this bye soon enough. And coming up this next week, it's happening for the Bills. They need the rest. And right now, they're going to have their work cut out for them. They're coming back from the break. They have Kansas City. They're going to have the Dolphins again. It's not an easy schedule. Rest up, Buffalo. Next up, Denver. Just completely crazy at top 10. They have made it. They have been one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in the NFL. And it all started with a massive win off Kansas City, guys. Maybe teams didn't take their shot, but Sean Payton does deserve a lot of credit. This team turning it around, and they got to be excited. They have an important game this upcoming week. They are playing this team, number 9, the Houston Texans, guys. In Houston, coming off a game where they played the Jacksonville Jaguars super tight, and now they're playing a team, the hottest in the NFL, in a battle where one of these teams probably will make the playoffs, and this game very well could determine it down the stretch. Super pumped. This is probably the game of the week, if you ask me. Number 8, we got the Miami Dolphins. They are playing Washington this week. They just had that Black Friday game where they beat the Jets, and it's going to be cruising. They got somewhat of an easier schedule. They should cruise their way to the division title at this point. Just based off schedule, they got lucky. They don't play the top teams the way Buffalo does. Buffalo had to play all the top teams across the East Division, and you know how tough that can get. Dolphins at least get a little bit of leeway there. So they're setting themselves up. It's just I'm a little worried about Tua. Did not look great. He has not looked consistent whatsoever, and throwing over a lot of turnovers last week has me a little worried. Detroit is the next team up. They got to rebound. That loss on Thursday night, they had 10 days now before they play the New Orleans Saints, and they got to regroup. It's been a couple ugly games for the Detroit Lions. They managed to win the one against the Bears 2 weeks ago. New Orleans is down bad. Take advantage of it. Show me you deserve this spot. I believe you do. Number 6, Jacksonville Jaguars. These guys, I think, have demonstrated that they are very potentially a top 5 team. Definitely a top contender for the AFC. Coming up, they have Cincinnati, team that I don't want them to take them lightly. They might be down bad as well, but they got to come through here with a solid win. And if Houston loses in this situation, Indy has a tough week, but it's a chance for them to really put the division away. Next up, number 5, just keeps rolling. As hard as it is, these top 5 teams have been the top 5 consistently, and it's because they just all keep winning. So Dallas, we saw them roll over Washington, very likely going to roll over Seattle this week. We really start to see a difference in the teams once you get out of this row here. Even at the Dolphins, you start to see these top teams are the elite teams, and Dallas should be in that conversation as well. Next up, San Francisco. Also possibly in the game of the week. They're playing the Eagles coming up. I do believe they pivoted it. No, it doesn't look like it. But they're playing the Eagles. Massive. They beat Seattle, pretty much showing that this division is theirs. Just a drubbing there. Philadelphia, this is a potential week we could see some shake up in the top 3. One of the top 3, though, is on a bye week, so they might be relatively safe. I don't tend to move teams out of prominent situations like this on a bye week, and the Ravens were possibly the best ever 10-3 team or whatever. I talked about it last week. Ravens 20-10 win over the Chargers. It was a little ugly, but it was nice to see them close out a game where they were winning, managed to cover the spread, all that fun stuff. Ravens stay at number 3. Number 2, Chiefs just taking care of business in their own division. 10-point win over the Raiders there. And now they have Green Bay on a Sunday night. I want to see them continue to roll, continue to show why you are the championship team. Green Bay is a prime example for them to show it. I think it works in their favor that it is a primetime game, so it's a lot easier to step up for that one. Number one, still up there after what a crazy game they had against the Buffalo Bills, but they continue to win, so they continue to stay number one. Definitely because they've beaten every team except somehow they lost to the Jets. And there you guys have it. The power rankings heading into week 13, 14. I'm sorry I forgot, but you know what it is. It's an important week nonetheless. All the weeks down the stretch here are, and this is where we are on November 29th, power rankings. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you for that next video.